Anyways, hi, my name is Heidi, and I'm an American that moved abroad that's on disability Social Security along with my husband, George. Okay. And we came here 4 years ago. George is a Filipino citizen, but lived 27 years in the United States. I'm going to discuss today the pros and cons of living in the Philippines as a retired, disabled expat and female. Pretty much it's all the same. Okay. The reason that I moved here is basically there were zero benefits for me living in the United States anymore. And the cost of living was out of control. And at that point, the pandemic had hit. So things were starting to go up, problems were starting to happen. And George was overworking and having a lot of medical issues. So, as far as there being zero benefits of me living in the United States, think about it. What benefits are you reaping or taking in from being near retirement age and not struggling? Okay, very few of us make a very planned retirement plan. Okay, in saying that, the good things that are happening here way outweigh the problems that are here, but can you actually deal with it? Sometimes the things that I'm enjoying now are 5 times higher in the United States. The biggest thing is going to be rent. As a matter of fact, in my opinion, it's now 10 times higher. I pay less than 200 US dollars. Actually, it's $175 a month for a 2 bedroom, 2 bath. I'm going to put a chart up here in regards to the cheapest countries you can live in right now as far as retirement or living abroad. A lot of you guys are going to come over here to work. Like there's guys in their 30s and 40s and women that come over here and live because they're working online. Okay. So the biggest thing is it's just way cheaper. Okay. The biggest pro is, again, the cost that we were just discussing. Okay. And if you have to do self pay on your medical, which I'll get into later, the smaller items are cheap, but it also will go on the con list due to medical um, difficulties that can happen over here. So the biggest pro is the cost. The other is the friendly people, the nice weather. Services are really cheap now. It's not always going to be up to your standard. You can go to our other channel, Philippine Antics. Okay, over there I talk about other expats, what's going on. I get into some gossip and drama. And I also have lots of videos about being in Mexico here, my complaints, and you'll get the real deal, guys. And the services are not always up to par, but they're a fraction of the cost. Like if you get a massage in the United States, last I checked, it was around $80, $90. And I believe that's like for 30 minutes. Here, the whole deal with the tip can be $10. Big, big difference. Okay. So I'm going to talk about also being disabled in the Philippines. Okay. If you're in a wheelchair, the streets are really bad for this. If you guys go to like Makati, BGC, and even Makati is going to be limited. There are some areas where there's like laid out concrete where you can get around, but the Philippines is not wheelchair friendly for the most part when you go to most places. And the transport, okay, is going to fall into a pro. Here, I don't need a car. Now, George was gifted a car from his brother and family last Christmas, not this past one, but about a year ago. And we were taking Grabs, which are the same as Uber. If we'd have went same place for Uber, it'd have been like $20. If you get an Uber to the mall, round trip might, if you get the minivan, actually it'll probably cost you about 8 to 10 US dollars. Same distance, about 4 miles away, 3, 4 miles away, on an Uber and back would cost 2 to 3 times that. So getting a cab and a Grab is going to be really cheap. Now, I recommend you use Grab in that because you know what the price is up front. If you guys just get a random cab because you're an expat, it could be a problem, which will go under the con situation. As an expat, ever since I've been here for 4 years, a lot of times I'm getting skin tax. Skin tax is when you're a foreigner and they think you're super rich and you get charged based on your wallet, not color, because they do this all colors, all nationalities. They know you're foreign. As a matter of fact, being George speaks such good English and he has from the very beginning, they think he is born in America or he gets hit as an OFW. So then we're getting double skin tax. So even when he speaks full Tagalog, we still get hit. They still just like, oh, this is a brother that's been living in the U.S. with his Pinoy parents, and we still get hit. Like the other day, I you guys might have heard this one. I got hit like $6 for 2 pounds of bananas. In the Philippines, it was 300 and something pesos. And I'm like, there's no way. And so then when I went to an expensive box store, SM here, no, it was 100 pesos cheaper for the same bananas. And I get prices change on the street, but almost always it's way cheaper. And it was bananas, for Christ's sake. So the skin tax will be a bad thing. Okay. On the con situation will be the banking. Okay. I've had to replace several credit cards since I've been here, and the credit cards I had to send by FedEx, which costs about $130 to get it here in a few days. So getting things in regular mail just doesn't happen. You don't have to worry about all the spam mail, but you do have to worry about getting the basic mail. I have my Social Security items sent here. They send me the like yearly statement saying what the increase is. If you go to the Social Security website, you can like sign up and get in there, and then you'll be able to look at things. And so I suggest that you do that. I don't know. I haven't been in there lately to know if you can then look at those items now without having it mailed, but I got one this year and last year. Okay. On another problem, banking, it's hard to get banking. You have to be a permanent resident. So it means that you either have to get your 13A because you're married, or you have to have an SRRV, not a card stating that you're renewing to be here as a tourist, because usually they won't accept that unless you've been here like a year as a tourist and you have an ACRI card, but you have to be permanent residents to get the bank. Okay, so we have two banks here. One does the Social Security and the other is savings. And then George has a business account that deals with the YouTube channels and his social media and his job and everything. So we have two where the money comes in and out. We no longer have a bank account in the United States. Why? Because it's no longer viable to have mail sent to family's house to collect, like, oh, your cards, say, or to make sure the accounts don't get closed down, because so many of the expats have had their accounts closed down. Like literally, they cut the card off. Okay, they don't just come in and take your money. I'm just figuratively speaking. Okay, so banking can become a problem, but it's a blessing. I mean, I can just walk in now that Social Security's here and I can get change. Before I was taking out 10,000 pesos, 20,000 pesos, and it was all in thousands. So, like, if I go to pay for a package COD, which they still do here, then I wouldn't have any change. So sometimes I'd say, oh, just keep the change. And that's a lot. That's to pay them a couple hundred pesos extra just for delivering a package was getting to be much. Now I have to change. Okay. Now I'm going to talk about medical. Medical is way cheaper here. I can get blood work done for under 20 self-pay. I can get a doctor's visit and a specialist for around $20 or cheaper. Sometimes it's cheaper depending on what part of the Philippines you're in. Big problem comes with big items like heart surgery could cost upwards of 30, 40,000 US. But if you had that done in the US, it's 10 times more. Okay. Another problem is if you go into the emergency room, expect them to send you everywhere to go get stuff done. Like you're in an emergency and in a hospital, and some of them don't even have the machines, big hospitals. So they're going to tell you to take this script and go somewhere. They're going to tell you, like, go get the supplies. It's really weird when you're here in the Philippines what they'll have you do to prep for your own surgeries. Like, there was this gentleman that's having a heart surgery. They didn't even have the blood supply. Like, they were calling all expats to give blood. And so it's a setback for me, but you have to make that decision like me, that I decided, hey, I'm either going to be able to do it or not. I have some medical knowledge from my past. I have medical books. I use some herbal medicines. I have my basic scripts. I go to my basic doctors. I do preventative maintenance. Like, I don't eat as much sugar as I used to. I cut back on the fast food. I have a major first aid kit. I suggest everything from like super glue, the super glue that you would use to like for a bad wound that is medical grade. Okay. Rolls of scotch tape. I dislocated my arm. God, it's probably been 4 months ago. It just seemed like yesterday, but it was several months ago that the concrete was wet. The steps is made of marble, and I stepped up on it and slipped. I tried to grab onto the door, and this arm, as big as I am, and I'm a plus size girl, 6 foot tall, and I was able to hold most of my weight for a few minutes, and it dislocated. So I tried to brace myself on the flower bed, which is made of concrete, at the same time as I was holding onto the door. It dislocated. I couldn't even get it off the ground. And I came back in the house, and it was so bad, and George was out, and I had to wait for him to come back. The neighbor had to come get me. I sat out there for like an hour in the rain. Very scary, guys. Very, very, very scary. Ambulances and all this is a whole nother subject that I'll touch on some other time, but you really need to consider how serious is your medical. Okay. Um, Next, I'm going to talk about a bunch of cons besides medical bank cards being sent and it taking a while. It's a matter of keeping up with the embassy, and if you're on Social Security, they do a proof of life. If you don't get this proof of life, and if they send it to you and they don't have the correct address and they know you're here, they will also cut your Social Security off. I will do a video on that later, but it's just proof of life through Social Security. You guys should be aware of all these things instead of all these channels talking about, oh, date this and do that and look at me on vacation and, this is what I bought in the store today. And you know what? I'm guilty of some of that stuff, like when we went to the resort on the other channel, or you guys will see my pets. But I think it's time to bring back in moving to the Philippines, because with everything going on in the United States right now, you guys are going to have an option. The next 5 to 10 years will be super, super, super critical, and the country's about ready to change for the good and for the worse. If you're sitting in the United States under $2,000 and a pension a month as a single person, and you have any other way to make money, I would take the risk all over again. As a matter of fact, if something happens to George, I'm still going to stay here. Okay? Brings me around to the next one, a con. You're going to be homesick. Okay? I've cried a lot. I miss my, kids and grandkids. George has kids. We miss the family. And it's nice that we have some family here. And here's another thing. George has a life. He's not here with me like I thought. In my dreams of this little house on the prairie, Filipino mythical thing that I had going on in my head, I'm like, ooh, I'm going to get a housekeeper and everything's going to be cheap, which everything isn't cheap, but it's way better than the United States. Okay. I thought he'd be spending a lot of time. I'm like, oh, we'll board game and happy and kisses all the time. And I just had all this big dreaming going on in my head. It's not the way it turned out. Okay. So I miss the family, and you realize what you coulda, shoulda, woulda. You're just going to have to get over it. Okay. Con, the bureaucracy that goes on here. Everything is slow. Electric bills, grocery store, immigration. One immigration office will ask for 1 or 2 papers and all your stuff is done. And then, like when I went to Angeles City, they require one specific birth certificate. George had 3 different types, or we had 2. We had to go get the other one. And it's like, wait a minute, you guys don't want the 2 modern ones. You guys want his original all of a sudden. So it was just strange. It was like they were fighting the system. And if you get upset with them, I mean, it would happen the same in the United States, but especially here. They can just pull all your immigration guys. So the bureaucracy of how things go here is really, really slow to process things. You have to have patience. Also, do not get involved in politics. I'm going to tell you right now, the politicians and what do they call it? I call it royalty. Anybody that's of a big family, nepotism exists, which means, for those that don't know, nepotism means within the family. They're going to hire within the family at companies and small stores and all of this. You have to decide whether the Philippines will be right for you. I still suggest over all things that you still come here. Again, I discussed this the other day. The people living out of their cars, the people not eating, freezing in their cars. The weather is nice here. You may sweat to death at some point, which is hard on my lupus. I am a lupus. I have lupus, a lupus survivor. I almost said lupus survivor, which technically there it is. And with lupus, there are so many things I can't do, like long term in the sun. But I'd have been dealing with that in Florida too. And I have some breathing issues. The air quality in cities. You can go to other places where the air quality is not so bad, but in the cities, you are going to deal with bad air quality. They burn trash all the time. You're dealing with trash that's just on the ground and chemicals in the air. There's so many different things. And I'm learning these things the last couple of years, not before I went. And I hope you guys learned something from this. Be sure to comment. There'll be more videos coming. And I know this will go out to my fellow female expats that are coming here and people on disability and Social Security. And these are the core people I want to actually reach. I do answer the comments. George goes through here and answers comments. And I appreciate you guys being here.
Yeah, I'm gonna take my horse to